Welcome to the Moored Podcast with Ava and Najee, where we are manifesting original rich bitch experiences. Each week, we bring you travel reviews, wellness advice, and general millennial musings with a level of refinement. What level? It fucking depends. Hey, Ava.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm lovely. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's a wonderful day. You have your coffee,
Yes.
and we're sitting here talking about Bath today.
Bath.
Ah, Bath, United Kingdom. Can you tell the listeners why we decided on Bath?
Yes. So, in this travel review, we will be sharing our experience from Bath.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're unfamiliar with Bath, as we were prior to this trip, it is an old city,
Mm-hmm.
initially built by the Romans,
Mm-hmm.
on top of some very magical, beautiful, majestic, healing waters, hot springs. And it was kind of the original destination for wellness way back when. Important kings, queens, celebrities of the day would go to Bath to have a little wellness adventure. So we figured, obviously, this is a rich bitch experience we must have as well.
Absolutely. I remember my first trip to the United Kingdom. I actually went out to Glastonbury, and then when we got back to London, I realized that we actually passed a city called Bath that was known for, the hot springs and the thermal springs of days past, some of which still kind of exist in a separate form today.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad that we were able to embark on this experience and get to see Bath for ourselves.
Me too. So Bath is in the UK. It's about 100 miles west of London,
Mm-hmm.
or about 2 hours and some change on the train.
Mm-hmm.
And in theory, it's a very easy trip. Just hop on the train,
Mm-hmm.
you sit there for 2 hours, and you're transported to a different city. Get off the train and YOLO.
Boom.
However,
Mm.
our experience getting there was not quite so smooth.
It was tumultuous.
It was a little traumatic. And I would say it took us about 6 hours longer than we anticipated.
Yeah, it took a very, 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 very long time. A lot of waiting. And it kind of just threw off our day a little bit.
It really did. So what happened was there was a very unfortunate event where somebody actually was killed somewhere on the train line.
Yes.
And we learned that just as we were getting to the train station,
Mm-hmm.
because no joke, I think they shut the trains down like 5 minutes before we were supposed to take ours.
Mm-hmm. It literally happened right before. It was so crazy.
It happened right before, and what was kind of funny is like we were running a little bit late, and we were kind of stressing about getting to the London Paddington train station on time.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got there and realized that we were actually several hours early.
Several is an understatement.
Ah, and this was baby's first train interruption. Like I live in a car city.
Mhm.
We don't really do a lot of public transportation. And when we do, it's different. Like I have learned very quickly that the train interruptions, transportation delays over here are like frequent because when you talk to someone, they're like, oh, yeah, get used to it. And
Oh
like,
God.
were you born yesterday, honey?
They would literally say, "Oh, that happened again." Okay.
Yeah. Oh, again. It was almost like it was no big deal.
Yeah.
So that was not so fun, but we made the best of it. We did a few hours of podcast work at a nearby restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got back on a train and got there around 10 p.m.
Yeah, full context, we were supposed to leave at 12:03. We didn't end up hopping on a train until probably about 7:30.
Yeah, not great.
Yeah, it really kind of impacted everyone going westbound. So it was us and a lot of other people just sitting in London, Paddington, kind of just waiting to see what would happen.
Yeah. But once we got there, it was beautiful.
Yeah,
And so I think, we did a lot of different things.
it,
We saw a lot of different attractions,
that was fun.
tried a lot of food, had some time outdoors. So let's do a recap of our favorite activities, if you will,
Okay,
that we did while we were in Bath.
awesome.
So the big thing, or the popular thing, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
is the Roman baths. And so these are the ancient structures that still exist where the Romans built their bougie baths over the hot spring.
Yes.
And so now it's a bit more of a museum.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really cool to walk through it and just learn about it's pretty well preserved, wouldn't you say?
I would say it's well preserved, and I think they give a really kind of great overview of like how the times were back then and how, these baths were kind of infused in everyday Roman life.
Yeah. So there was a lot of also interesting information about just the architecture of it because it
Mm-hmm.
is quite a smart and complicated system in terms of like how they worked with the waters. But we learned all about that. And I would say the only unfortunate piece about visiting the Roman baths is like you can't actually bathe in the water anymore.
Right.
It's kind of toxic now,
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of elements on the planet, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So we were craving some natural spring water bath time.
Yes.
And you found us a good spot to actually have that experience.
Yeah. It was called the Therme Bath Spa in
Hmm.
Bath. Actually, it's a pretty new structure from what we learned, maybe just a couple of years old. And basically, it's just a day spa that really
Hmm.
uses kind of the natural kind of warm springs that are under Bath, but filtered for us to be able to kind of like swim in and
Yeah.
really lounge in. So basically, Therme, fairly new establishment. It has probably about three different floors full of like different activities. So as a day spa, they do have a rooftop pool. They
Yes.
have a rooftop pool that's pretty heated. And when we went there, it was probably peak day time, maybe around like 1 or 2 o'clock, maybe earlier. It wasn't super crowded, which I did like.
Yeah.
But it was nice to kind of feel the vibes up on the rooftop lounge. Well, it wasn't really a lounge, it was really just a pool.
It was the rooftop pool.
Yeah.
And it had a great view of Bath.
Mm-hmm.
The only downside was that there was no phones allowed and no photo taking. So we can't even show you the view. You would have to go there for yourselves to see it.
Yeah. The other thing that I kind of wish they had was maybe some music, maybe a bar, but then people would never leave.
True.
And it would just add to the vibe. But beautiful, beautiful views and a really, really nice facility.
Yes. And I did love they had an infrared sauna option
Oh,
as one of
yes,
the other
yes,
things.
yes.
And I love those.
Yes, we went downstairs to the wellness suite that Therme
Yeah.
has, which includes probably 6 to 7 different like relaxation or like basically rooms that you can use, whether it be like a steam room, sauna room, the infrared room,
Yeah.
a relaxation room, an ice room.
Ice room. It was supposed to be like ice bath, but it wasn't an ice bath.
Yeah, it
Like you couldn't
wasn't.
enact. It was just a bucket of ice.
Yeah, but by far, I think we really love that infrared
Yes.
room. That was really cool.
Yes. And I was sharing this with someone just earlier today, and they're like, oh, like, is it worth it to go? And I feel like if you want to get in a little sauna session and you want to enjoy a rooftop pool, it's totally worth it.
Hmm.
I will say I felt a little weird being in there swimming so close to other people because we're still kind of in, a pandemic world, so to speak. Like, yes, things are open now, but for me, it felt a little uncomfortable, honestly, to be like seated so close to so many people who, are traveling from all over the world. Like I was just getting a little sketched out, especially towards the end when we were indoors versus outdoors. So for those who prefer not to do a lot of that. Maybe I'd hold off on the spa, but overall it was a nice experience.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. I think that I like that they also had like different spa services that you could partake in. So if you wanted a little bit more of a private experience, like book your therapist and then get a massage or a facial. I think I would say this is a big attraction for
Yeah.
Bath. Typically, I don't really do day spas that are that public back at
Yeah.
home. I probably do something a little bit more like, I don't know, exclusive where I would get the treatment or treatments and then they have the pool and it's not really like a really popular day spa kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a really, really cool attraction for Bath, and I'm glad we tried it.
Yep.
I think the water felt amazing.
The water did. It was very warm. It was a very warm bath.
Yeah, and they only put a little bit of chlorine in it, so like they try to keep it as natural as you possibly can
Yeah.
while still trying to keep it safe. And I mean, it's something to do in Bath.
Yeah,
I liked it.
I agree. Other things that we saw, we did stop by the Fashion Museum in Bath, and they had some really, really old, again, Georgian era clothing that was kind of fun to see.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was all really well preserved.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to see things from like the 1600s that had held up so well.
Yeah.
And also just interesting to see how fashion has obviously progressed. I thought like one little small detail in particular that I thought was really interesting is they showed like a few examples of like boys' dresses.
Mm-hmm.
So like little boys would wear dresses until they're like 7, I think it said,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just like easier for dressing and things like that. And so it was nice to kind of see that like clothing was, but also wasn't as gendered.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was just sort of like an interesting little fun fact that I had never like heard about or seen photos of in particular in the past.
Yeah. I mean, they noted that men didn't wear pants until was it
Mhm.
like the 1700s or something like that. So being able to kind of just walk through the museum and see centuries of fashion within 100 different exhibits, which is what that's their catch line.
Yeah.
I thought was really, really cool. I thought it was really cool just to see how fashion has kind of gone through ebbs and flows, and also how like you can see remnants of each era and future eras too. So I thought that was kind of
Mhm.
fun as well.
Yeah. Well, now it's so much more popular for men to wear dresses again. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Harry Styles does it on Vogue. The World Goes Crazy. Kid Cudi does it.
Hmm.
So I think it's interesting to kind of see that, like, that's actually not a new thing. That's an old thing to the point of like fashion literally just cycles and cycles and cycles.
Yeah. What is old becomes new again.
Honestly, sometimes to our dislike, sometimes to our dislike.
Sometimes.
And then the other main activity that we did was a Bridgerton walking tour of the town.
Yes.
I loved this. So a lot of Bridgerton is actually filmed in Bath.
Yep.
And we did learn that about the city because it has so many well-preserved older buildings. It's actually used on a lot of TV and film sets.
Hmm.
So we did a little bit of a walking tour and I got to see Lady Danbury's house, which is actually a museum. It's called the Holborn Museum
Hmm.
in Bath. And then you got to take a photo on the Featheringtons front porch,
Yes.
which doesn't mean a lot to you because you haven't seen the series as much as I have. But I was like, this is a cute moment for us.
Yeah, the fun thing about that was I've seen most of Bridgerton season one, and the most that I saw, I wasn't really paying attention to it.
Oh,
But I thought it was a really cool series, really great concept. I have not seen season two. But the fun thing about the tour was we had a very kind of fun and eclectic and interesting tour guide who really knew his stuff, not only about Bridgerton, but also the history of Bath, and just the city, how it's evolved over the time. So it was kind of like a history museum, a bat tour of Bath, and then infuse Bridgerton in it, and then boom,
yes.
we learned so much in like just one take. So that was very fun.
And
And
I won a prize.
you did win a
There was
prize.
a quiz. There was a quiz. And if you know me, you know I'm an A+ student. So I was very excited at the opportunity to answer some Bridgerton pop quiz questions.
Yes, you killed it.
I killed
It was
it.
great.
Humbly. I killed it.
Yes.
And our tour guide was so impressed that he gifted me a chocolate bar, which we ate for the next like 3 nights. It was delicious.
It was a really good chocolate bar. I was surprised you got all those questions right. I was just like, wow, she's really been watching Bridgerton.
Yes, I watched the entire season 1 3 times through
Wow.
because there's such a big gap between season 1 and season 2,
Mhm.
and it came out in like the winter time. So
Mhm.
that's when I watch my shows because it's so freaking cold that it's the only thing you want to do.
Right.
So I loved it, and it was fun to see some of the different spots. We saw like the tea shop, we saw the modiste,
Mhm.
the Lady Danbury's house, as we mentioned, the
Yes.
Featheringtons.
Mhm.
And we also saw like the street that Sir Regé-Jean Page rides in on in his debut episode,
Yes.
which is so cool.
That's so cool. I think, like you said earlier, Bath and a lot of the towns out in the countryside, they do a lot of shooting over there because for period films, it's just easier because
Mhm.
everything's still pretty well preserved and old looking, but like grand as well. We also learned a lot of like really kind of like fun, weird tidbits. Apparently, they used to tax homes by the amount of
Yeah.
windows that they had, and if
Yeah.
people couldn't afford the taxes, then they block up one of the windows so they
Yeah.
pay less. It was it's just weird how, I wouldn't say weird, it's just interesting how different things used to be and what they would tax and how life was.
Right.
We learned a lot.
So windows were actually a sign of wealth.
Yeah, basically. And if you weren't as wealthy or you didn't want to pay as many taxes, you just busted one of your windows and covered it.
Uh, is that how it works?
That's how it worked. We saw some
Okay.
of the windows boarded up, not boarded up, but like stoned up. And I was just like,
Yeah.
okay, very interesting.
Yep.
But yes, that tour ended at the beautiful Royal Crescent.
Mm,
And after that, we made our way south to visit a distillery.
yes, which you were really excited about because it was a gin distillery.
I mean, over the past couple of years, I have fallen in love with gin. I didn't like it as much when I was younger, but apparently your taste buds change every 7 years, and now I'm totally into it. So ideally, I was thinking that the Bath Gin Distillery would be like a bar and a distillery,
Yeah.
but it's actually two different things. So when we walked up to the distillery, we were met by a young man named Archie.
Hmm.
And we basically just asked him, "Is this a distillery?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, it looked like he might have been like on break,
Yes.
but he welcomed us in, basically showed us their little factory operation, which was probably no bigger than, a kitchen living room set. But basically, he walked us through exactly how he made the gin,
Hmm.
how he infused some of the flavors, and also some of the flavor kind of experimentation that he goes through
Yeah.
to come up with some different flavors for the adjoining bar called Canary. That particular distillery makes gin for.
Yeah.
So it was really cool. We learned a little bit about Archie, the process of making gin, and he even let us try some.
Yes. And I don't like gin. Like
Mm.
gin is an alcohol that I really can't drink. It just puts me in a bad mood. However, in the spirit of trying things and being in the moment, I
Yes.
did sample the slow gin.
Mhm.
And slow gin is a little bit easier to drink, I believe.
Mhm.
And it had a nice flavor. It had like a Christmas time, cinnamony type of comforting herbal flavor. And I think he said it's their top seller every year when they take their product to the Christmas markets,
Oh, yes.
which makes sense. So I did enjoy that little sample. But generally speaking,
Not your
I'm gonna
jam.
pass on the gin.
Well, it was a cool experience.
It was.
Archie was really nice, and you really did try several of those gins, which is pretty cool. And
You're
one thing,
welcome.
thank you. I would say one thing that Archie did tell us is that the gin that he makes is different because it's one that can also be served up neat,
Yeah.
which typically gin has like a dry, harsher taste.
Yeah.
So something that's like a little softer and more flavorful definitely kind of helps go down. So I loved it.
You loved it.
I loved it. It was a really fun kind of off the cusp experience.
It was. And then we had a nice lunch.
We did. This was at the Scallop Show.
The scallop shell.
Yeah.
I had, what did I have there? So the scallop shell was a classic sort of seafood fish
Mm-hmm.
and chip type joint. But I was really excited because they offered a gluten-free batter for the fish and chips. So I had gluten-free fish and chips, and I thought it was really good. It was a sunny day, sun was coming through the windows. We had just had our little gin tour,
Mhm.
and it felt like a really nice, kind of authentic dining
Yeah.
experience. And it wasn't like too overly like fast foody type of fried.
Yeah.
It felt more healthy.
Yeah. I mean, gluten-free batter. Yeah. I mean, the scallop show was really cool because it was like just a super chill experience. We were hungry. I remember seeing the scallop show on the Google, and
Yeah.
I definitely wanted to add like a seafood restaurant to the list of potentials that we were visiting.
Yep.
So I basically had to order scallops. They were 4.50 a pound. They're 4.50 a scallop. So I was like, let me order like five and get some asparagus with it. And it was really good.
It was good. I liked that. And I would say, like, in general, I wouldn't say it's a food city. Like, we had some very mixed dining experiences in Bath.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel like in the UK in general, I'm like, I don't know if I would ever go to the UK to like dine
No,
specifically.
no, it's been a little tough. But we did have one other meal that I thought was really good at the steak place called Aqua
Aqua, yep.
on Walcott Street.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, well, I loved it because they had a lot of different proteins on the menu.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I found a bit difficult is like getting like a decent serving of protein.
Right.
I'm someone who typically tries to get like at least 25 to 30 grams at every meal.
Yeah.
And it's been hard to do here.
Yeah.
So we were both ready, I think, to have a filet
Mm-hmm.
that night. So we had steak
Yep.
and it was delicious. They had like skinny cut McDonald's French fries, which are always a vibe. And it was a really cute place. It was in an old church, right?
Yep. It was an old church. I loved Aqua on Walcott Street. It was in the old church. I think just like logistically, because that's something that we talked about at dinner too. It was kind of weird because the kitchen is like in the basement.
Yeah.
And it was very hot, like in Aqua. I remember because they had the door open, they had fans going. And at one point, I was just like, "Are you hot? Am I the only one?" I was fanning myself and everything. And I was just like, wow. But I mean, I think the church that the restaurant in is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
I think the food was really great.
Yeah.
We even had a very kind of spirited server named Curtis who was
Mm-hmm.
turned, he turns 21 in one day and he
Aw.
was going to New York City. So I thought it was kind of funny that him and his friends chose to go to New York because
Yeah.
I mean, he was flying in the 14th and he wouldn't turn 21 till 2 days later. And I'm just like,
You can't drink there, buddy.
but he can drink at home. And it's just so weird. But
I know.
Curtis was great. Aqua was great.
Yeah.
And we had a really great meal, a really great, hearty, like filling meal that we were satisfied with.
Yeah. I would agree. So I'd say those two meals were like probably my highlights. Everything else was like,
Yeah, yeah, I'll probably say the same. Um,
So the weather the whole time was gorgeous, which I loved.
it was,
80 degrees, clear blue skies, sunny, just like really pure summer vibe. And I loved that. We also sat outside of our hotel, the Hotel Indigo, one day,
mhm,
and they had like a cart with champagne and oysters, which was
mhm.
very rich bitch. I loved that.
Yes,
Um,
loved
and it was just a good vibe. That hotel is right next to a church that actually does the church bells like on the hour every
it.
hour, which was a cute little soundtrack too. And I just enjoyed sitting out there with a glass of champagne in the sun, nowhere to be, nothing to do, just living.
Yeah, my favorite part about Hotel Indigo, I would say everyone who worked front of house was very accommodating and they were very nice.
Yeah.
I really did love that, and that's not something that goes unnoticed to me. I also loved that our rate included breakfast at their restaurant called The
Oh,
Elder.
yes.
So it was just very kind of like an easy process. You can make a reservation, but it's not like an airtight reservation. You can still show up when you wanted. A server comes and takes your tea and coffee order and then takes your food order and calls it a day.
Yeah.
Every day I had avocado toast with eggs with a bowl of fruit. I thought it was that good.
If it's not broken,
Don't
don't
fix
fix it.
it. Like it was really good. So it was a really great way to start the day. Like I said, love the oysters and the champagne and the church at I think it was like St. John's or whatever the name of the church was. Well, it really was like a nice kind of like authentic experience. And it was pretty
Yeah.
centrally located.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think when you're in kind of like the downtown area, we could call it, most everything is walkable.
Thank God.
Yes.
Like Bath isn't a huge town, but we
But it's
were
bigger than we thought it
it
was going to
is
be.
oh my gosh. Like there were so many tourists there.
Yeah, yeah. It was prime it was prime tourist
Was
season.
everyone was in Bath that summer. But it was fun to watch.
It was. And then something else that I love that we did is we did a little day trip to Castle Combe.
Mm,
And that is a little tiny town, population 334,
a little village.
voted the most pretty town in all of England.
Wow.
And so, honestly, I first discovered this town on Instagram. And when I saw the photo, I was like, oh my God, what is that place? I need to go there because it literally looks like a storybook.
Hmm.
Nothing in the town has been built since 1600. So all of those buildings are so incredibly old and charming and just very unique. Living in the US, like our everything is much, much newer,
Oh, yeah.
even the old stuff.
Mhm.
Like I live in a condo that's quote unquote old, built in 1942. So it's just a completely different experience. And I really love I love old architecture.
Hmm.
So it's fun to see. It kind of looked like a storybook. It's like, I don't know, Cinderella vibes.
Kinda, yeah.
Yes, it was the cutest. We took an Uber there
We did.
from Bath, and it was only like a 20-minute drive.
Not far at all.
Not far at all, just a few miles. So getting there was great. But we didn't really know what to expect. And essentially when you get there, it's like one bridge over a river,
Hmm.
one row of really, really cute old buildings, and that's it. That's it.
That's really it.
So we were calling it a day trip, and honestly, it could be like an hour trip, maybe
Mhm.
3 hours max, because it's really cute, it's really quaint, and it's worth seeing. However, you don't want to do what we did and basically get stranded there.
Yeah. So buses actually do not run to that town on Sundays.
Hmm.
And for the rest of the week, they run maybe every hour for maybe 5 hours. So getting there is probably best by car. Um, and we did not have a car, and it was
No.
on a Sunday. And there isn't that many Ubers that come out to Castle Combs. So we were a little bit stranded.
There's like one Uber on the map and it just would not pick us up.
It would not pick us up.
But that's okay because there is a really cute coffee shop in town, the Old Stables Coffee Shop, and the sweetest girls working there.
Shout out to them.
Shout out to them. They really saved our lives, to put it slightly over dramatically, because they let us use their phone and call a cab company, and we're obviously able to get back home.
Yes.
But it was a little bit stressful because, it's kind of remote. Service is not great. We've learned that American phone numbers don't do us any favors in trying to download English taxi apps.
Yep. Mhm.
And it was just a little tricky.
It was a little tricky, but we had to navigate through it. And luckily, with some help from some amazing and talented locals, we
Here
ended up
we
getting
are.
home talking about it.
Yes. So I'd say if you go on this little excursion, it'd be great to do with a car.
Yeah.
Like rent a car because there are also other little towns around in the Cotswolds area that probably are just as small with another like one thing to see in each.
Yeah.
And so it'd be more of a fun like day trip where you drive in between the towns
Yeah.
and you have the freedom to like enter and exit and not have to worry about transportation. Um, that would probably be the better way to do it.
Yeah, I have a feeling that a lot of people that we saw in Castlecombe knew that, but we didn't. But now we know and we're sharing it. Because surprisingly, we saw maybe about what, 20 to 30 different people kind of like walking around taking pictures that obviously weren't from the town. So
Yes.
I think that is something popular to do during the summertime to
Yeah.
visit some of the villages in the Cotswolds.
It was so cute. It really was. And we got some nice pictures,
We did.
which is important,
Super important. Super important.
especially since we couldn't take any pictures on that rooftop pool.
Yeah,
Still
so those
salty.
pictures definitely made up for it. Oh, one more thing I did love about Castle Coon was the church. This
Oh,
old church that was absolutely gorgeous, and it had a cemetery right behind it with tombstones of people that had passed in the 1800s.
yeah.
So if that doesn't tell you how old this town is
Hmm.
and how well preserved it is,
Yeah.
I don't know what will.
I don't know what will. Maybe
Yeah,
Wikipedia.
exactly.
Yeah, that was super cute. And then we headed back to Bath for another little while, and we had a little nature run-in. Would you like to share?
Oh gosh. Okay. So this was a very, very traumatic time in my life.
And like a good friend, I was there taking footage
Yes.
and laughing.
Stay tuned to the More Pod account to visit or to watch exactly what my trauma was. But long story short, Bath has a bunch of seagulls.
So many seagulls.
So many seagulls. It's really weird because Bath actually is not close to any like body of water.
Yep.
So it's kind of just weird. I remember Googling once, like, why there's so many seagulls in Bath, and Google returned something like, well, apparently the tops of buildings remind them of like the beach or something. And I was like, this is weird, but sure. Long story short, we were by Bath Abbey, which is the big, beautiful church
Mhm.
in downtown Bath. And we were walking back to our hotel. And I just feel some type of wet substance basically fall on my head and face. And I just immediately started freaking out. Like I like took off my shirt, start wiping my face because like it hit my face. Bird shit hit my face.
But you knew you got shit on, right?
Yeah,
You weren't like, what is this wet substance?
no, because the birds had been flying around our entire time there. So I was just like,
Yeah.
I knew I got shit on.
A seagull pooped on your face.
On my face, not on my arm, not on
No,
my shoulder, not on my shirt, literally on my
it was on
face
your cheek.
and my neck.
Yes.
It might have been in my hair too. It was very traumatic.
So gross, but so funny. And also, it's good luck.
That's what they say, but honestly, I'm not buying it. I'm not whoever made that up just wanted to make people like me feel better.
I mean, I was pooped on once on my shoulder, and learning that it was good luck made me feel a little better.
You know what? I just felt better knowing that it was just a very funny experience that we would talk about on the pod. And I was happy that we were so close to the hotel as well.
Yeah, the day was done. It could have been worse.
It definitely
It
could
could
have
have been
been
better.
worse, but it could have been worse.
Oof.
Yeah.
It was pretty gross. I'm not gonna
So, yeah, I'm basically traumatized by birds. Not only did the seagull shit on my face, but pigeons really would walk in front of you on the sidewalk like they were regular people. And I would just be like, can you move? Like, you're in the way. It was just, birds were not my friend this trip.
Birds are not your friend. I get it. I
It
get
was
it.
it was just a lot. But something that we could look back and laugh on.
I thought it was pretty funny.
I'm still cackling on the inside that that would happen to me. It's just
Yes.
so on brand sometimes just to have random crazy stuff happen to me.
But you're one with nature.
Yeah, maybe that's what they sensed. But I'm pretty sure I heard that bird cackling above me after it happened, in between my screams of horror.
Well, I'm glad that you're okay.
Thanks.
But also thank you because that was really funny.
As long as I can make your day, I'll consider it as a win.
All right. We're gonna take it as a win. There you go. Lemons to lemonade.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Anything else you want to add about our time in Bath?
Well, right before we left, we ended up going on the Bath Skyline
Oh, that's
Trail,
right.
which we did a little bit of that. We didn't have a whole bunch of time, but basically it's just a 6 mile walk basically around
Just a 6 mile walk.
basically around kind of like the Bath countryside. It boasts really, really beautiful views of the land and the city.
Hmm.
And you get to see some kind of like a little bit of wildlife and we saw some cattle there too. So it
Yeah.
was kind of really cool. It's a very hilly adventure, I will say that.
Yes. The Bath Skyline Walk. I feel like they did not disclose the elevation.
Yeah, they did
I
not.
was not expecting that.
I was expecting it to be very flat.
Ugh. Well, we had to climb up the hills essentially.
Hmm.
And I've been hiking before, and I know that you love hiking. And I will say, I was not prepared for that hike.
Hmm.
We only did a part of it, but the cardio could have used some work for me.
Yeah.
Like it was a very steep hike,
Yeah.
which
Yeah,
again,
it
I feel like
was.
it's totally breezed over or not mentioned at all.
It definitely wasn't mentioned. I remember I had a little bit of a hard time when we were starting too. I was like, and I think like my body had snapped into like hiking mode, probably because like I had just come off of a hiking trip, but they can let you know that it's a little hilly. They made it seem like it
Yeah.
was easy breezy.
Yeah, it was not as easy breezy as we expected, but it did provide, even just going on the first two stops,
Hmm.
we were able to get some nice views and outlooks. And also on our way back, we kind of walked through more of the area of like where people actually live
Hmm.
and saw some really charming English gardens with lavender and
Oh
all
yeah.
sorts of beautiful blooms. And I loved that.
Yeah, I thought it was absolutely amazing. Even when we were up in kind of like the highly elevated hills, you can see some extremely modern homes being built up there too. So that's
Hmm.
kind of how you know Bath also has its version of old money for people to be able to afford to kind of like build homes up there. But it was it was a really nice experience. And I think if I were ever to go back, I definitely would want to try doing the full 6 miles to see what else is there.
Yeah. Yes. So I'd say overall, a very beautiful, well-preserved
Gorgeous.
town.
Yes.
A quick couple hours outside of London.
Mm-hmm.
So on a good day with the trains, easy to get to. Lots of things to do.
Hmm.
Food was okay. Not my favorite, but there's also a lot of day trips
Yeah.
from Bath that you can do, which I also loved. Like I felt like there's a lot of options the whole time
Yeah.
and I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna rate, so we do a rating for all of our travel reviews.
Mhm.
I think I'm going to give our Bath experience, a 7 out of 10.
Okay. Bath was very interesting. I really thought that it was going to be more of like a hot springy town, but it was more of a historic
Yeah,
town. But not to say a beautiful town, like you said, it's right along the River Avon, which we got some beautiful footage of.
mhm,
And it is kind of like that classic country English, like countryside town
yeah,
that's way more popular than I thought. I think overall, the experience in Bath, I would probably give, I'll say it's an 8 out of 10.
okay,
Weather, we got to do a lot.
yep,
Beautiful. We met some great people. Um, and I kind of want to go back to do that Skyline Trail.
yeah.
But yeah, somewhere I definitely revisit. I just feel like we spent 5 days there. You really
Mhm.
only need two and a half, three
Yeah,
max.
it's a weekend trip for sure.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I recommend it.
Yes, it was nice. We
Super nice.
recommend, especially if you're already going to be in England.
Definitely, especially since it's so easy to get there too.
All right. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate and review us on your favorite podcasting platform and tune in each Wednesday to hear the things that make us more us and discover a thing or two to make you more you.
Bye.
Bye.